Hey there, my name is Matthew Peterson. I'm a trainer at Pragmatic Works. We're in Northeast Florida, and I do a lot of training on Power BI and Power Apps at the moment. And what I want to bring to you this week is a Power Apps question that I've seen. I've done a few videos on this already about how can you filter the records that you are showing within a gallery. And one of the common questions I get during my live training sessions is there a way to only show records based on the user who has been assigned to that record, whether it was the person who created it or it's just the person that's assigned to it? And you definitely can do that. And as long as you have in your data source some kind of column that designates a user assigned to a record, that's easily done. And most oftentimes I see it done with just by putting in the email address of the person that either created the record or assigned it. And so the first part of this video, I'm going to show you how you can do that based on actually picking an individual person and only seeing the records attached to them. But then towards the end of this video, I will also show you how, based on the person who is logged into your app, they only see the data that has been assigned to them. And there's going to be a little bit of a fix we have to do at the end called a delegation warning that I will show you how to easily fix within the app itself. So let's just get straight on over and let's take a look at the app that we're working with today. So this app is one I've been working with for a while in all my demonstrations. It's very basic. I currently have, let's take a look at my actual data itself. This is just a SharePoint list. And in the SharePoint list, I'm keeping track of the name of the person that we've made the record for, their favorite color, the date, if they're a cat or dog person, favorite number, as well as who it has been assigned to. And this assigned to column in a SharePoint list, I've set it up the column as a people picker. So I have access to everybody within my organization. However, for your data source, as long as you have some kind of column that has like an email address in, then this is going to work perfectly for you. So let's take a look at how the app currently works. I currently have my gallery being filtered based on colors. So if I come over here and pick on red, I only see records that have favorite color of red. And we could have done this with the names instead, but now what I want to show you is how can we do it based on that people picker column or that email address column that you have within your list. So we're going to get out of the preview here, and the first thing I'm going to do is plug in a drop-down so that we can have an option to pick of what email address we're trying to access. So we're going to come on up to our insert ribbon, and underneath input, we're going to put in a drop-down. And then we're going to move this drop-down just right on over here. I also like to rename every object I put onto an app so that way I can take a little bit more advantage and know what I'm working with. So I'm just going to double-click drop-down 2 and call this drop email address. That way it'll be a little bit easier to reference in our formulas later on. Now currently, as you see, this has just been populated with the default value of 1. Well, I want the values from my actual column. And I don't want all of them, I just want the distinct values. So that way if my name showed up 20 times, I don't want to see Matt Peterson 20 separate times in this dropdown. So we're going to take advantage of the function called distinct. So with your items property selected in your dropdown, we're now going to come down to the formula and we're going to type in distinct. And the way distinct is going to work here, if I spell it correctly, there we go, is that the first thing is you have to give it the source of where you are trying to access your data. And mine is called patch records. Then we're going to put in a comma to give it the actual expression. What column am I trying to get my distinct records from? And I'm trying to get it from my assigned to. And then I'm just going to close that off. And at this point, if we take a look, we're getting a little bit of an error here. We're getting this icon here with this yellow caution sign. And if we click on that caution sign, it's telling me here that the columns produced by this rule are all nested tables. Well, why is that? Well, because of how I have my data source set up, it's a people picker, there's actually a lot more with every person that's put in this assigned to. It's not just their email, but it's the company name, it's the city they're located in, it's their display name, etc. So I have to be a little bit more specific on what I want it to bring back based on that record. So I'm going to go assigned to dot email. And now when I close this off, now we should be in business. So now we can see this is being pre-populated here. So we'll hit the play button. And these are all the individual email addresses that I currently have in the SharePoint list. So that was option number, the first step is we had to get all of those values. Now we want to use these values to filter down my gallery because currently this gallery is showing me all the records for everybody that they've been assigned to. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out of our preview mode. and we're going to come to our gallery. And as you can see, the gallery is currently being filtered based on if the favorite color column is equal to this value in our dropdown. Well, with filter statements, you can put in more than one. So I'm going to add in an extra one. So now I'm going to put in another comma to give it the next filter statement. And what I wanted to do is you have to reference first the column in question in your data source. So the column in question, my data source, is that assigned to column. So we're going to start off with that, my assigned to. And right away it's giving me the red because it's saying, whoa, assigned to, this isn't just a normal text column, this is your people picker. So each value in this column has a whole bunch of things attached to it. So what are you trying to bring back from it? Well, I'm trying to match up the email addresses. So I'm going to put in my .email. So now I have that set. That's the column values that we're looking for. Now I want them to equal the value that's going to come from this dropdown. So we're going to come right on in, and I'll zoom back in for us, and I'm going to say is equal to, and now this is where we are going to put in and reference our dropdown list. And this is why I gave it this name, so it's easier to remember. So I'm going to say look at the drop email address control. And it says, okay, I'm going to look there, but what do you want me to pull out of that control? So now I'm going to hit dot, and I want you to look at the selected text. And they're saying, whoa, 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 that's a whole record. Again, in that selected text, there's a lot with it. What are you trying to get from that selected text? And if we come over and we go to result, I want the result of that selected text, and we close it off, and we hit play. Notice right here, Matt Peterson, things look pretty good. Let's come on over and go M. Pearson. M. Pearson, if I go red to green, Mitchell doesn't have any for green. Does he have any for blue? He does not. Does he have any for red? He does. So again, I'll zoom back out of this and show that formula one more time of how we did that filter statement on the entire gallery. So what we came in here is we said we wanted the assigned to email column. We want to only return values from that list that are equal to our control of drop email address, what we selected from it, and the result that comes out of it. And so that is a really simple way to get your drop downs to filter down based on your users. However, let's take this one step further. This would be great like for your administrators, so they can see all of the records. But what if you had a scenario where you only wanted the person who is logged in to only see their records? Well, in that case, we first off would not need this drop down right here. So I'm just going to turn this drop down. I'm going to keep it in here, but if you ever want to hide something as you're working on it, there's the property called visible, and visible is set to true. If I set the visible property false, this now goes away. It's still part of the app, but it's not going to be shown right now. And I'm going to do some future videos on there of how can you dynamically control that to show for some people but not show for others. But for now, I'm just going to turn it to false because I'm not going to access it anymore for this next part of the demonstration. What I want to do now is instead of the records, us picking the actual email address, I want it to be the email address of the person who is currently logged into our application. So I'm going to get rid of this whole thing at the end because we're no longer going to reference that control anymore. And so what we're going to use is what's called the user function. The user function can return 3 separate things for the individual logged in user. And one of those things that it returns is the email address of the person who is currently logged in. And it's a very simple function. It is just simply user, and then you close it off with a parentheses. So user, open parentheses, close parentheses. You don't have to feed it anything. But again, this is saying this is a whole record, and there's 3 things attached to each person who is logged in. So we have to say, what do we want to bring back from that record? And I want to bring in, so I hit the dot, and these are the 3 that you are allowed to bring in. The person's email address, their full name, or even the image that they have stored. So we want the email because that's what we're trying to match up. We're trying to match up email addresses. So I'm going to go with email here, and then we're just going to close this off. And now if I hit the play button, assigned to, look, it's just myself, Matt Peterson. If I go to purple, only purple ones that are assigned to me. Blue, I don't have any for blue. And finally down to green, I don't have any for green. So this is great. You now have just figured out a way, and I'll show that formula one more time, of all you have to do in your gallery is put in a statement in your filter command, reference the column where the email addresses are stored, and then say that has to equal user.email. But you might be noticing something here. We have some blue coming up underneath our formulas. And whenever you see blue lines in Power App formulas, that means there's a delegation warning. And delegation warnings are simply saying, hey, your data source can't do the work. Power Apps is actually having to do all the work. They're actually having to drag all of the records in and then do its job. And that's just not the way Power Apps was set up. The goal of Power Apps was to have the data source do the job and then feed the results into it. But some data sources just don't understand the commands, which is why Power Apps says, okay, I'll do the work for you. Now, again, in some videos down below in the comments, underneath the description here, I've put in a video that does one of these delegation warnings that's a little bit different from this one. But just for a quick scenario of what delegation warnings are going to kind of mess up for you, is we're going to go over into our file ribbon, and I'm going to come down into settings, and we're going to go to advanced settings. And right here are your delegation limits. And so this number 500, what it means is that Power App, this app itself, will only work for that user.email on the first 500 records. It only brings in 500 records to access. So let's say there were 1,000 records, and one of those records I was attached to, and it was the 998th. Well, if I keep my formula the way it is, that record will not show up in this app, because Power Apps is saying, I'm only going to do work on your first 500 records, and that is it. Well, what's the limit that we could set delegation to? We can tell Power Apps that we will go up to 2,000. That is the current limit within Power Apps. So if you know you're not going to have over 2,000 records, then you are perfectly fine with that function and that formula you currently have. However, if you know you're going to go over 2,000, we need some kind of fix, because I want to make sure I actually get to see all of the records I've been assigned to. But again, if I was assigned to something after more than 500 records or more than 2,000, how can we fix our delegation warning? So let's come on over and take a look at what's giving us the problem. It's this user.email. And so here's the fix that we're going to do. We're going to go to the app. So we're in the tree view. I'm going to go to the app, and I'm going to set a variable. So I'm going to have my email address actually stored at the very beginning when the app starts up. I'm going to expand down my formula window here, and I'm just going to simply say, I'm going to come down to the next line, and I'm going to say, let's set a variable. I'm going to call it the var logged in user, and I'm going to use that exact same function. I'm going to say user.email. And I have it stored. And notice no delegation warning, because this is just storing my email address at the very beginning. It's not even talking to my SharePoint list whatsoever. So how does this fix the delegation warning? Well, now that I've stored my email for when I log into this app, I can use this on any screen within my application. The other thing you have to know is whenever you're making variables within the Design Studio, if you want the variable to store while you're currently designing, next to app in your tree view, hit the ellipses and click run on start. And I'm not going to do the run on start just yet, because I want to show you. If I go to view and I click variables, this gives me all of the variables currently in my app. And if you take a look, the variable that I just declared, and let me get myself off the screen here so we can see it, it says there's no value yet stored for it, because I technically haven't started the app up since I've now declared the variable. So when you're in the Design Studio, when you declare these global variables, you have to do this run on start. And now if I go back to view variables, there we go. Here's my email address. It has now been stored in. But in the future, whenever you're just using the app on your phone, on your tablet, on the web, etc., that will be done for you automatically. So how do we use this to our advantage? Well, we're going to come back to where we were having that delegation issue. And here what we're going to do is, instead of say assign to.email equals user email, I'm going to get rid of that hard-coded formula, and instead I'm going to put in the variable. I'm going to say, hey, use the variable that was stored at the very beginning. And so I called it the var logged in user right here. And now notice no delegation warning whatsoever. So now if there are 4,000 records, it will work on all 4,000 records. So if we hit the play button, green, purple, there we go, red, I have red. Do I have blue? I don't have any blue, and I have no green. So it'll work on all of my records, and that is one way to fix that delegation warning. That is super common within SharePoint. And so the very last thing I want to show you, because I had some people comment earlier on an earlier video I had done, is they said, well, what if I want this to be dynamic? So when somebody logs in, for like my regular people who do the records, they should only see theirs. But what if the administrator logs in and they want access to every single thing? Is there a way to do that? And there definitely is. And we're going to use an if command in order to do it. So let's come back to our gallery. So what we have here is when a regular user who's not the administrator, when they log in, we want this filtering to happen. We want it to be based on the color they've selected, as well as the email addresses that they've been assigned to in the records. But for the other person who's logged in, who is the administrator, we want them to see everything. So with a very simple fix, we're going to put an if statement here. So I'm going to come to the front. I'm going to hit Shift Enter just to start the formula up here at the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if, and we're going to have it do a test. And so we're going to say, look at the person who is currently logged in. Well, how do we get the person's email address who's currently logged in? Well, we use that variable that we used from earlier. We're going to go with our var logged in user. And we're going to say if it equals, and this is where you would put in the administrator's email address, whoever that might be. And if you have multiple administrators, you can use multiple email addresses. If you have them in another table, you can reference that column. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to use my email address. So I'm going to say if the var logged in user is equal to mpeterson@pragmaticworks.com, then I want them to see everything. So I'm going to say, so check that out. And so what do, because again, I'm on the items property. So I'm saying, okay, if the logged in user is equal to this email address, what items do you want them to see? Well, I want them to see all of the records in the list. So I'm going to give them the whole SharePoint list, which I've called patch records. Great. So that's if it is true. Well, what if it is false? What do we want to happen? Well, if it's false, then we want them to do this filter statement, which is going to be based on the email address. And so I'm just going to close this, put a comma here. And now they will see only the person who is logged in. They will only see the records attached to them. The other thing that we could do here on this patch records, we could also put in the filter as well. So I'd come back up to here at the top, and I would put in, if I still want the filtering to be based on favorite color, then I would come over, and in front of this, I would say, let's filter those. Let me get the right part here. Let's filter right here. I'm zoomed in. Let's filter the patch records with the same thing of the favorite color. And actually, you know what? Just to make this quicker, I'm just going to copy out this code right here. So let's copy this out and put it right at top. We want it to still be filtered down based on the colors. And then we're going to put in our comma. And then down here going, why are we getting this red little error at the bottom? Because we do need one last parentheses to close off our final if statement. And so let's see if we're actually working here. So I am logged in currently. So now when I hit play, notice I'm not just seeing the records assigned to me, because now I've told them, hey, I'm the administrator. I get to see everything. So green, purple, assigned to Matt Peterson, red, Mitchell, Matt, Jeremiah, Julia, blue. I now get to see every single thing. So that's how we did that. So again, I'll just zoom in here so you can take a look. I said, okay, for the items that are going to display, if the person, look at the email address that we've stored in, if it's equal to a certain value, which I made it myself, then I want you to filter the patch records based on the favorite color from our dropdown that we have over here, and they get to see everything. However, if they're not equal to this email address, then it goes to the false conclusion. And this conclusion says, we'll filter down your patch records, still do it based on that favorite color, but then look at the email address and only return the values in the email address that are equal to the person who is currently logged in. So this is a way to set up two separate views, one based on someone that needs to see everything, and the other based on just seeing their records only. So I hope you've enjoyed. We fixed the delegation warning. We did a few different filterings, one with the drop-down. We declared some variables. I hope this is beneficial in your app development. Like, comment below, subscribe. Let me know if there's any other topics that you would like me to discuss in future videos, and I would love to help you out.